This is Friedrich Schiller's Letters on the Aesthetic Education of Man. Third letter. Nature begins with man no better than with the rest of her works. She acts for him where he cannot yet act as a free intelligence for himself. But it is just this that constitutes his humanity, that he does not rest satisfied with what nature has made of him, but possesses the capacity of retracing again with his reason the steps which she anticipated with him, of remodeling the work of need into a work of his free choice, and of elevating physical into moral necessity. He comes to himself out of his sensuous slumber, recognizes himself as a man, looks around and finds himself in the state. An unavoidable exigency had thrown him there before he could freely choose his station. Need ordained it through mere natural laws before he could do so by the laws of reason. But with this state, based on need, which had arisen only from his natural endowment as man, and was calculated for that alone, he could not and cannot, as a moral being, rest content, and woe to him if he could. With the same right, therefore, by which he becomes a man, he leaves the dominion of a blind necessity, since he has parted from it at so many other points by his freedom, as, to take only a single example, he effaces through morality and ennobles through beauty the low character which the needs of sexual love imprinted on him. He thus artificially retraces his childhood and his maturity, forms for himself a state of nature in idea, which is not indeed given him by experience, but is the necessary result of his rationality, borrows in this ideal state an ultimate aim which he never knew in his actual state of nature, and a choice of which he was not then capable, and proceeds now exactly as though he were starting afresh and substituting this status of independence, with clear insight and free resolve, for the status of contract. However artfully and firmly blind lawlessness has laid the foundation of her work, however arrogantly she may maintain it, and with whatever appearance of veneration she may surround it, you may regard it during this operation as something that has simply never happened, for the work of blind forces possess no authority before which freedom need bow, and everything must yield to the highest ultimate aim which reason sets up in his personality. In this way, the attempt of a people that has reached maturity to transform its natural state into a moral one originates and vindicates itself. This natural state, as we may call every political body whose organization is ultimately based on force and not on laws, is now indeed opposed to the moral man, for whom mere conformity to law is now to serve as law, but it is still quite adequate for the physical man, who gives himself laws only in order to come to terms with force. But the physical man is actual, and the moral man only problematical. Therefore, when reason abolishes the natural state, as she inevitably must do if she wishes to put her own in its place, she weighs the physical and actual man against the problematical moral man. She ventures the very existence of society for a merely possible, even if morally necessary, ideal of society. She takes from man something that he actually possesses, and without which he possesses nothing, and assigns him in its place something which he could and should possess. And if she has relied too much upon him, she will, for a humanity which is still beyond him and can so remain without detriment to his existence, have also wrested from him those very means of animality which are the condition of his humanity. Before he has had time to hold fast to the law with his will, she has taken the ladder of nature from under his feet. The great consideration is, therefore, that physical society in time may not cease for an instant while moral society is being formed in idea. That for the sake of human dignity its very existence may not be endangered. When the mechanic has the works of a clock to repair, he lets the wheels run down, but the living clockwork of the state must be repaired while it is in motion. And here it is a case of changing the wheels as they revolve. We must therefore search for some support for the continuation of society, to make it independent of the actual state which we want to abolish. This support is not to be found in the natural character of man, which, selfish and violent as it is, aims far more at the destruction than the preservation of society. As little is it to be found in his moral character, which ex hypothesi has yet to be formed, and upon which, because it is free and because it is never apparent, the lawgiver can never operate and never with certainty depend. The important thing, therefore, is to dissociate caprice from the physical and freedom from the moral character. To make the first conformable with law, the second dependent on impressions. To remove the former somewhat further from the matter in order to bring the latter somehow nearer to it, so as to create a third character which, related to these other two, might pave the way for a transition from the realm of mere force to the rule of law, and, without impeding the development of the moral character, might serve rather as a sensible pledge of morality as yet unseen. I'm going to read that last paragraph of the sentence here once again, because that was dense. The important thing, therefore, is to dissociate caprice from the physical, and freedom from the moral character. To make the first, caprice from the physical character, conformable with law; the second, the moral character, dependent on impressions; to remove the former, physical character, somewhat further from matter in order to bring the latter, moral character, somewhat nearer to it, so as to create a third character, which, related to these other two, might pave the way for a transition from the realm of mere force to the rule of law, and without impeding the development of the moral character, might serve rather as a sensible pledge of a morality as yet unseen.